All right, everyone, we're on the island proper for Batman Arkham Asylum. So
Yeah, and
the game opens up a little bit here, but there's really not much to do in this game besides Riddler clues, really.
the island exterior is kind of just like the Metroidvania traditional hub location where you reach the other sections from. Um,
Yeah, it's where all the
yeah.
areas connect, basically.
You'll want to go out. You want to go through the motions of clearing all the enemies out of this area whenever you come back here, because every time you finish an area, there are a few more hovering around. It gives you a sense of the amount of time that's passing too, so it serves a narrative purpose. Um,
It was your OnStar fucking protection now, Batman.
Need to go through the drive-thru to pick up some McDonald's.
I gotta say, it's quite the moment climbing out and seeing the exterior of the asylum for the first time with the big-ass moon hovering in the background. The moon that is, I should mention, 2,000 times as big as the actual moon should appear. Just like every appearance of the moon.
It looks cool.
Every time the moon appears in pop culture, everyone makes it like really huge. I've looked up into the sky, okay? The moon, as you can see it from the ground, is about the size of a dime.
I thought you were going to say that the moon should have been destroyed.
No.
Arkham Asylum could have been the Batman masterpiece. It should have been, but the moon was too big. Therefore, I'm only going to give it a 9.9.
I just like, is the moon not majestic enough for you? Do you have to like...
I think it is majestic, but we don't get to appreciate its majesty enough because it's all the way up there. We're all the way down here.
You see, Superman is canon, and he put a big magnifying lens in the sky.
No, I was gonna say Bruce Almighty is canon, and he tied a lasso to
Bruce?
it and pulled it closer towards the
If the
planet.
moon in the real world were that close, we'd have a lot bigger worries than some clown taking over a prison, okay?
Yo, but the beach would be awesome.
The beach would be in your front yard. I like this moment where you find like thugs like beating on the Batmobile. It's like,
I am not convinced this Batmobile's a fucking two-seater. That shit looks like it barely fits Batman.
it looks like he would have to lay back in the seat in order to fit inside.
Yeah.
Joker on his lap on the way here.
It's kind of weird and somewhat disappointing that, if I remember correctly, this iteration of the Batmobile is not one of the Batmobiles you can drive in Arkham Knight.
Huh.
No,
I
don't
think you're
it is.
correct.
Like it, yet there's just the standard Bat tank. You have the '89 Mobile, which is great, and you have like the '60s Cadillac. I think
You have the Tumbler.
and the Tumbler, sure, but not this iteration of the Batmobile, which I always found strange because like this is the game where the Batmobile was introduced for the series, so why not? pay
Arkham
respects
Knight
to it?
kind of ignores the aesthetic of Arkham Asylum and City. Like, it really wants to, like, look like its own thing. I'm not really sure why it does that, because it is in continuity. But
It's because it was the first game on the PS4 and Xbox One, so they really wanted to kind of spiffy up things.
yeah. Well, they were already moving in that direction with the re-releases of Arkham City, where, like, Armored Edition or whatever. Because they wanted it to evoke the Dark Knight, I think.
Now, Armored Edition wanted to sell toys. Like, I think a more apt comparison was Return to Arkham. So
I love
Arkham
Armored
series.
Edition with Batman and his sock and boppers.
But like they wanted to sell toys, yes, but they also wanted to tie the aesthetic of the games in general in with the Dark Knight, and in order to do that, they made everything armored looking, and that was the trend with Batman media at the time, armor. It wasn't really until like the Justice League, DC expanded universe movies that they moved back to, oh, now we can do nice looking Batman costumes that are made of cloth now.
And he can turn his head.
And he can turn his head, yes.
Yeah, 'cause, like that was the big deal about it back then. It was like specifically for like live action Batman. You know, a Batman actor who was able to actually turn his head and not have to like bend his back 90 degrees backwards just to look up.
That was a line in Dark Knight. It's like you want
to be able to turn your
head. Turn your head.
The Batman being one of the more serious superheroes, it means he was like one of the superhero movie series that always sort of struggled with the aesthetic of superhero costumes in live action, because it's easy to make that kind of thing look cool when it's drawn on paper. It's significantly harder to make it look cool when it's an actual guy wearing an actual costume, because you do. Well, because, like, you do it even slightly wrong, and you wind up fucking looking like the guy what is it? Superman and Lois, who I'm sure
Lois
the
and
story
Clark?
in that no, not Lois and Clark. I'm talking about the
The new
newest
series,
show.
right?
Superman and Lois.
Oh, the new
which
series.
is called that because Lois and
Right.
Clark was taken.
Damn.
The new Superman show. Have you seen what Superman looks like in that? I'm sure the stories are really nice, but Superman looks really goofy, and that's because he's like a
Tyler Hoechlin needs to be Superman in the movies, by the way.
He's a guy in a live-action Superman costume, and the only time that's ever been pulled off right is Man of Steel. You know?
However, I also feel that true to life adaptations of comic book costumes weren't so much attempted back then because of the stigma that I feel is not really so much of a thing nowadays because
Well, I
comic book
mean,
movies and in general are just
That's
all over
that's
the
not
place.
necessarily true. They certainly did try it a few times. There's the Spider-Man trilogy, which did it reasonably okay. There's the
Sure, but
Daredevil movie.
I still argue there was a bit of a stigma because I recall one of the punchlines of one of the first few the first X-Men movie.
So what do you expect us to do?
is
Walk
when
around in
look-
yellow spandex?
Yeah,
what would you expect in
But,
yellow
like,
spandex?
That's
Like,
just
funny,
the
'cause that's the
X-Men
comic
movies
book.
that did that. The Spider-Man movies
Right.
stuck to the costume, straight up, and they had the luxury of the costume covering the entire person, so they didn't really have to work as hard to make it work well attached to a flesh and blood human. Hey, Harley.
It's just one of those things where go back and watch the original Burton movies for Batman and just marvel at how many times Michael Keaton has to pivot
Yes,
on a dime.
he has to turn his entire torso, but because
It also gives me the bat tuck and roll, which is probably my favorite fucking maneuver Keaton ever does in the series. Proper.
Also, small note in this cut scene, Harley supposedly throwing something at Gordon off screen. You can just turn the camera and see she's talking to no one.
yeah, but
yeah.
when it comes to really, she's talking to someone off screen, but there's no one there.
Yeah.
That I can't tell if that's on purpose or if they were actually cutting a corner because it could be either way.
That was corner cutting.
Okay. So what was I saying? Oh yeah, superhero costumes. Even nowadays, people only the creatives only attempt it about half the time, and that comes like we can make such better looking costumes nowadays that it's really not that big of an ask, but you still get stuff like the Daredevil costume, which rather than actually looking like the Daredevil costume is kind of just aping the Captain America look with horns and red. And the Captain America look was just Kevlar, but blue, with an A on it.
I mean, still better than the first Captain America movie where he was a space ball.
Well, I think that was part of the joke where they were playing Captain America up as a mascot until he actually did something heroic.
No, I'm talking about the original.
Oh, the original
first live
original
action.
Captain America? Oh yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
That was
What timestamp are we talking?
I
talking
want to
like-
say late 70s.
yeah. We're talking about a
'cause I
Captain
don't-
America.
Oh wait, I do
that-
recall this. I do recall that. Is that when he rode a motorcycle?
Yes. He rode a motorcycle
Yeah,
and he had
okay.
the super big helmet that looked like a space
Yeah,
ball
because it was the
helmet.
bike helmet. It was just. Yeah, it was just a bike
Yeah.
helmet.
But it was a really
just
big
painted stars
one,
and stripes.
which is what made it fun.
Yeah.
Okay, for as nostalgic
Let me see if I can find a picture.
For
of
as
it.
nostalgic as people find stuff like the Adam West Batman show and whatever, superhero costumes and costumes in general were really limited back then. Look, there's a reason Darth Vader looks so much smoother these days than he did before. That's because the original Darth Vader costume wasn't much better.
Uh,
How dare you?
Found
See what
found
the Adam West costume still worked for its
The
time.
actor inside the Darth Vader costume could barely see. It was hilarious.
Behold, original Captain America, at least in chat.
In the
Classic.
Discord chat. Probably want to put that in the video.
I will make a note of that.
You're not going to do it.
I am making a note in Notepad to make sure I do it. Shut up.
He's gonna put it in
I'm
the
saying
wrong
this
part.
out loud. I'm saying this now to help persuade you to actually do it. I forgot why does he have blue fucking face paint on his eyes? Like it's such an extension of his
I
helmet.
need to see this now. Hang on.
It's got a dad
Oh
bod.
yeah, that's the one. It's literally an old school biker helmet.
Well, going into the topic of costumes though, what would you say is your favorite Batman costume? Live action specifically. I don't count like animated or comic book media.
I mean, there's something classic about the Burton one.
I have recency bias.
So you're gonna say the most modern one? That's a good costume. My only complaint is the helmet.
It does give him a bit of a 5 head.
Yeah, like he's totally rocking 5 head. Like I think it was like a repurposed like army helmet. That's what it looks like anyway. It's just a little too wide.
The thing about the Batman costumes is that they kind of highlight how unrealistic Batman's cape and cowl actually are, because they can never get it to look one-to-one. Like, never. In order to make it, like, look like Batman's costume should, they make it this immobile rubber contraption in both the Burton movies and in, like, Batman Begins. And then in order to get him to turn his head, they have to add this joint to it, which totally throws off the proportions of the thing.
Well, the interesting thing is with Battinson, they basically put a collar around it so you're not seeing his neck. So they probably didn't have as much material there to make sure so he could move his head.
The thing about like the Justice League continuity, the expanded universe movies, where who was Batfleck? Yes. The thing about the Batfleck costume is that it was based on like the Dark Knight Returns, right? But I never liked the way the Dark Knight Returns looked on paper, let alone in live action. It was like, it's very cool that they replicated it so well in live action, but that just means we have an ugly Bat costume based on an uglier Bat costume.
I think it's the closest they'll ever get to like the traditional comic book look, where it's not even really, it doesn't even look like a suit. It doesn't look like he's wearing a gray. It's like a gray t-shirt with a Batman emblem on it.
It's always awkward because rule of cool always matters for Batman in comics, because you'll always have those panels where his cape is like super long and billowing and stuff, and it's like he would never actually wear that.
No, that shit must also weigh like 3 tons.
The Dark Knight / Arkham Asylum explanation of it being made of a special material that can become a glider is pretty cool.
I love this guy. I mean, he's breathing at least. You can see his chest moving.
Yeah, he's breathing at least. He's not dead yet.
He's playing dead. He's playing
I don't think
possum.
he's breathing. I think that's rigor mortis.
All right, so
you know what I found to be a good interpretation of like the classic comic book Batman look is not actually from any sort of official license endeavor, but a fan-made Batman versus Predator film that was made eons ago. The only clip you can find of it on YouTube is like a really fucking low quality rendition of it. But the guy they had for Batman for that one, obviously he's clearly just wearing like a gray sweatshirt, but the cowl, the cape, like the whole aesthetic of it is fucking incredible.
Huh.
And I think that if Hollywood would just went a little above and beyond with that, they could make that kind of comic book Batman where the suit might as well just be fucking painted on. They can make that work.
Who's the artist that did Kingdom Come, that did like that hyper realistic
Alex
look?
Ross? It's Alex Ross, wasn't it?
Alex Ross. That sounds right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was Alex Ross.
I looked up that bat suit you mentioned, and the screenshots I literally thought were Alex Ross drawings.
Yeah.
Which I guess is a compliment.
Like, obviously, if you're going to have, like, an anatomically correct suit, which is kind of a gag in Batman Forever, I realize, I still think you can make it work. Like, depending on the physique of the Batman in question. You know, that's kind of why, like, strangely enough, I didn't mind the rubber suit in Batman Forever, either. Like, I know everyone's quick to point out the
it was
the
Batman
nipples,
and Robin,
sure,
actually.
Yeah. Well, no, because it started with Batman Forever. Yeah, it started with Forever. The bat nipples were
I
introduced
don't think it was a
Forever,
gag in
and the bat
that
ass.
movie, though. It was just a thing.
Yeah.
I would argue otherwise, because Nicole Kidman makes a lot of comments on the suit itself, like in the movie proper. It's like, you don't do that.
I don't
want to
rewatch it, okay?
Yeah. Forever is not the worst.
It was Poison
thing in the
Ivy
world.
who first like verbally pointed it out, though, wasn't it?
No, Nicole Kidman makes a line about it being black rubber in the rooftop scene. But it's like nipples aside, and I know that's kind of the gag along with the bat ass. Like the suit itself, I didn't think was terrible, and I think it had some really good silhouette art too. Like it functions as a Batman suit. Just don't ask what it's made of.
It's just always weird when we're talking about Batman actors, because I always kind of just mentally go back where it's like, Batfleck's, very big for obvious reasons. Batson's more, thin and toned. It's just kind of one of those things where it's like, if you go by actual, in-universe height, weight, body build types, the closest physically we've ever had was still Adam West. It's just the suit was crap.
That was cold, Batman. That was really cold.
Yeah, he'll be fine.
You say physically speaking, you think Adam West fit the role the best?
Literally in terms of stated height, weight, body build type.
Yeah,
Adam West is the closest as far as listings
well, how tall was Adam West?
What?
How tall was Adam West?
6'1".
6'1".
Bruce is 6'2", I believe.
Yeah, and he might as well be 8 feet tall with the way he's portrayed in the comic.
Yeah,
so
but
surreal.
just in terms of height, weight, body type, and stuff, Adam West is technically the closest we've ever had.
Yeah. The problem with like skin tight, muscly costumes in superhero stuff is that like you kind of need the actor to be mobile, and when a costume for like any body type or any gender, when a costume is that tight to the body, it restricts mobility badly. Unless it's made of like yoga pants material or something.
Like elastic or yoga pants.
So a small thing I wanted to point out since we just saw it, I am convinced, I have no way to verify this, but that pic of Firefly on the newspaper, I am convinced is just a picture of the Rocketeer just with a different helmet drawn on it.
Listen, you got to cut corners when you got it. You got to save
One of
time.
the awkward things about Arkham Asylum is that like they clearly didn't fully expect it to take off as its own standalone franchise when they were writing it. So they have all these like entries and little Easter eggs relating to other villains that no longer match up to what they ended up doing to those villains in the sequels.
Yeah.
So
That's it. It did not take them long to tease Arkham City.
There's a tease in this game.
Like,
Unfortunately, I tried to find the room in this recording, but for some reason it just wouldn't work.
It only works post.
No, because I streamed my first run of this for practice, and I got it first try.
I mean, they clearly had a concept for a sequel if they got around to it, because there's setup work for it, but I don't think they expected it to go any further than one extra game.
No, I think that they just had an idea, and that was it.
They had an idea, they teased it.
But they did make a teaser for that idea just a few months after this game was released. It was a big deal in like one of the. I forgot when the first Arkham City teaser was revealed. I think it was like what was the Game Awards before the Game Awards were actually a thing? I think it was like on Spike TV or some other shit. Like it debuted there, and that was just a few months after Asylum came out.
The point, though, is that like they probably weren't expecting the Arkham series to become a standalone franchise. They probably thought they'd get maybe 2 games out of it, and then the next Batman game would be its own standalone thing that does something else,
Yeah.
Because it was a licensed property. You didn't see licensed properties of this high quality back then, so nobody really expected them to last. And, previous Batman games, which were generally based on like the animated series, they were standalone projects too. They didn't really connect. And, the same could be said of games in other superhero franchises. You had like your movie tie-ins. You had Ultimate Spider-Man, which is like a 1-game thing. And you had...
technically, Spider-Man 1 and 2 on PlayStation were connected, but that's the only one I can think of.
Well, technically, in the sense that their movies are connected. I'm not...
No. Not even... No, it's not even...
No, there was just a Spider-Man 1 and 2 on the PlayStation 1.
These are before the Raimi movies.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like... You never really saw like on the rare occasion when you saw that kind of thing, it lasted maybe 2 games.
Who is Thomas Elliot? I only know the Riddler. Piss off every...
Dr. Telliot, we'll meet soon. Also, Killer Croc's last name is transferred.
Shut up.
What? I'm learning something new.
His name is actually Waylon Jones.
Hush.
Yeah.
That
Fuck.
You're telling me to shut up? Fuck you.
Fuck that animated movie, by the way.
I did not like the animated adaptation of
Hush is one of those villains that has really only ever worked in the context of a long-running comic event story because he requires a lot of setup to work and he requires a lot of setup to take down. He's one of those supervillains that only ever like reaches his full potential when he has a long-form story to really breathe in.
I also want to make one thing clear too, because the animated adaptation of Hush wasn't good, but I'm not going to pretend that like Hush in the comic book was any better, because he had the weakest fucking identity like in the comic book. Like minute one, you know it immediately who Hush is, because they are not very subtle like in hinting like who the character actually is. But I always thought that was never the point of the Hush comic book.
Hush was entirely a construct made to really shake up the Bruce Wayne identity. So
yes,
like,
and I feel you lose all that when you just make Hush Riddler.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like in the actual like animated adaptation, was like that is so fucking weak.
The entire point of Hush was that he took over as Bruce Wayne and got up to all kinds of stuff as Bruce Wayne, some of it to his own advantage, some of it messing up Bruce Wayne's life, and some of it just really hilarious, like ending up getting involved with Harley Quinn when she thought he was Bruce Wayne. And you know, also, wasn't the Hush storyline like slightly before the New 52 reboot?
Hush? No, Hush was early 2000s.
Okay. So a little before it, but it actually resolved before New 52.
I want to say it was shortly after No Man's Land.
Okay.
They're all dead.
I was wondering if Hush might have been like right before the reboot and never got fully resolved, but that might be Max. No. That might be Max Lord.
Also, I think you might be misconstruing what Hush was actually about, Lewis, because Thomas Elliott did not masquerade as Bruce Wayne in the original Hush storyline. You may be thinking of like the second Hush storyline,
but like I thought that one was that's where I know Hush from.
No, the original Hush storyline was more about diving into like Batman's psyche and how he works, like as Batman, what his family around him means to him, and his rogues gallery and other shit. I always thought that was a true purpose of Hush, and to make Riddler more of a threatening villain without actually making him fucking Hush. But still, like it's not very subtle, but I still think it's a very interesting read and miles better than the animated adaptation.
It's also a storyline that's based around, you know, psychological warfare and mystery rather than just punching things.